Hello. Welcome to another Scrap Your Scrap Thursday nights. This is part 3 of our 3-part sessions using the Carta Bella Flower Shoppe material. And tonight we are making a journal page. I have, in this particular scene, I've already cut a 6.5 by 8 inch sheet of paper. Half an inch of the 6.5 will go to the binding strip that holes will be put in it to put it into an album. The piece of paper that I used, I ripped into strips, and I'm using the back and the front, and I'm just alternating the actual pattern versus plain paper. And I've torn it so that with the blue paper you can see the white edge so that you can really see that distressed look. So here I'm just adding these pieces on, leaving a little bit of space between them so that I was able to conserve enough of this paper to use for a different project. And it gave me the look that I wanted. Here I'm noticing that I've got the flat strip coming sort of down into the page, and I really preferred to have that flat strip at the top of the page. So I've decided that I'm going to rip another piece to put in the middle of the blue, and I'm going to stick the flat edge to the top of the page now and put the other piece in the middle. Now that this is all stuck down, I am going to flip it over and I'm going to trim off any of the extra ends. Here I'm looking through my watercolor paints to find a white watercolor paint and a silver watercolor paint. And I'm also putting down a protective plastic sheet on my desktop so I don't make a mess. I'm unscrewing both paints and removing the hard little piece that gets on top of the opening so that they're all ready to go. At this point, I'm putting a dollop of white watercolor paint and the silver watercolor paint, so I have some on my palette. I've also got a glass of water there so I can add water because I don't want an opaque covering. I want it to be transparent. So I'm adding a fair bit of water to the white on the side there, and you'll notice that you'll see the transparency when I go to brush it onto the paper. I want there to still be the evidence of the strips and the colors and the flowers and the differences between the pieces. Now my intention for this wash is to kind of blend and meld it all together. I didn't want it to have that obvious stripy appearance. I wanted it to more settle into the background. So sometimes you'll need to put several applications of white paint and lots of water in to mush it around. I'm now going to repeat that same process with the silver, and again I'm just really putting a fair bit of water into that so that that silver just gives me a hint of pearlization rather than a lot of color. It's now time to add some elements to the page, and if you remember in part 2 I took out this sentiment and I sort of did a haphazard fussy cutting of it until I figured out what I wanted to use it for, and I've decided that I'm going to use it for this page. So I go around and I am making an even more detailed, slimmer blue edging around and going down into different parts of the sentiment to give it some punch. I found a 3x4 journal box that I really liked. It had a door on it, and I would like to add that door to the composition on my journal page. And I didn't really want to have all the extra blue around it because I felt there was enough, or there would end up being enough blue on the page when I'm finished. So right now I'm just chunk cutting or chunk fussy cutting around the image, and then I'll go back in and do much more detailed fussy cutting. I hesitated cutting off that blue. I had a second thought that maybe I might need that blue to anchor in the door in the background. So I started looking for other elements to bring into my page, and I saw a sticker of a truck with some hydrangeas in the back, and I liked that, and I looked for a few other items. Off screen, I kind of got an idea of the things that I wanted to put on the page, and so that had me going back in and actually doing that fussy cutting. So sometimes it's not a bad idea if you're not really sold on an idea to take a pause and take time in choosing whether or not you really want to go all the way with your fussy cutting. So here is where I start to play with the actual design of it. So I'm bringing in some of those things I thought I might use, and I'm playing with them in and around that large sentiment. The sentiment's pretty big, and it's not heavy enough to be sitting in the bottom corner, anchoring the page, but it was substantial enough that it needed enough space to play and design around it. So you can see here that I've taken it completely off the page because I'm more interested in constructing the scene at the bottom of the page, which is the thing that's going to be more of the focal point of the work. The sentiment itself has a white core, and the edges were just a little too crisp for what I had envisioned for this page. So I decided to go in and do some distressing of those edges just to give it a softer look and to pull out a little more white around that piece so that it blended a bit better into the background. As you can see, I dipped into a multitude of distressing tools in order to get the look I was actually craving, and I finally got it. After cleaning the dust off of my board, I decided I wanted to get that crispness in the paper dealt with as well. So I just took it and I wiggled it up and I crumpled it up to get some crease lines in it so it looked like it had been through the wash, and I quite liked it when I was finished with it. Once I put that on the page, I started to notice that I felt like everything else now was too crisp. And so I attacked everything pretty much with my variety of tools just to give a little more softness to the edges. Not to blend it in necessarily, but just to make sure that it didn't pop out so much that it became individual things on a page rather than a whole scene. I added some scratches to the front of the door and to the area at the bottom of the door. That really seemed to sort of break that tension on the paper and made it look a lot more vintage and soft. And then I powdered the background of the sticker that I had chosen so that I could pop dot it without worrying about the actual sticker sticking to the page itself. I first thought of filing down the sticker as well, but I realized that there was too much white around it, so my filing wouldn't make any sense. So I turned around and trimmed back that white band that you find around most stickers on a sticker sheet, and just to be able to take away the harshness of that white line, which is nothing like a sanded line. I then went in and sanded the edges so that now you could actually see the white strikes of the sandpaper, which gave it a nice vintagey, distressed feel. I repeated this on the car. I removed that white edge and then I did that sanding again. It was now time to start sticking some things down, so I took some pop dots to raise the sentiment up in the top left corner. I decided that I was going to keep the doorway in the background because I had other elements that would be more towards the front of the page. I also glued the back of the car because I felt that some of the elements that I wanted in the front would still need to be popped beyond the car. And I popped dotted the basket of flowers because I want that to be more towards the front. And that is going to be in front of the car area. I've decided to use the small basket of hydrangeas, and I'm going to powder the back of the sticker and put on pop dots so that will bring that to the front as well. Again, here I am just trimming off that excess little bit of outer white frame so that it blends in better on the page. Now looking at the page, I notice that I need to put something in the bottom right-hand corner just to kind of balance it a little bit better. It's kind of wonky at the moment. So I look through my papers and I'm finding a little tote bag that's full of hydrangea, and it would be fun to put that on the doorstep like somebody has just delivered it. So I popped up the back, and you'll see in a moment that I'm going to distress it a little bit again, trying to meld everything together. And I place it just below the step at the right hand side, just to give that little bit of balance. So I pull out some larger hydrangeas. I want to create the impression of a bush look, and so I'm just going to fussy cut this. And again, adding some distress to that image. I'm trying to give this some dimension, so I'm breaking down that stiff paper like I did with the sentiment, and I'm just going to glue along the lines, and I'm actually physically going to push this together so you get some height between those glue lines and hold it down. It's kind of a cheap and easy way to do it without using pop dots. So I continue on finding little bits of larger hydrangeas to put on that front row to create that faux hydrangea bush that I want across the scene. And a final trim on the back side, making sure everything comes off. And because I use that technique, you want to make sure that you're putting pressure along the edge of your cut piece that you faux puffed. You want to make sure that you put pressure along the edge when you cut it so you don't cut it too big. Now it's time to get some height. So I've gone in and I've found some hydrangeas that are on stems so that I can sort of tuck those into the background to pull some height into my scene. I'm tucking them from the bottom edge and behind the door and around the sentiment just to sort of contain the space a little bit and to add some more decoration. Now this next part is a lot of fussy cutting, so I'm just going to pop to the end. As you can see, using the fussy cutting technique, for the comparison from one side to the other side, it really lightens up to do that fussy cutting rather than keeping those frames around those flowers. So it actually kind of fades into the page rather than standing out abruptly. Here we are at the finished page. I've got all of the fussy cutting done, and as you can see, it looks like those hydrangeas are almost like vines going up either side of the page, and definitely those flowers really helped with that large sentiment on the page. Now the only thing to do is the finishing details. So I have a Wink of Stella glitter pen, and I also have, I think it's a Nuvo sparkle pen, but you can use any sparkle pen. And what I'm going to do is go in and highlight some of the areas of the image. With the silver pen, I'm looking for the outer shadows of things, so I'm assuming that the sun is coming from the upper left, and I'm adding that silver pen in, sparkle pen in on the right hand side to give it dimension. I added silver over the horizontal stripes, and that really made it pop as well. I'm very pleased with the silver pen. It does highlight things, gives it that subtle sense of depth, which may or may not come across so much on the video, but it definitely does on the live page. Well, that's it for tonight's video, and using scrapbooking paper to make a journal page. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends.